Let's talk about the 3 workout or conditioning intents we have at Arsenal. Before we get into this does not include our intention around strength. When it comes to strength training, I will make a separate video explaining why we do what we do and how we progress through strength and think about strength from a macro point of view. But today, this video is just it's solely around the conditioning intents of our workouts. So there are 3 main conditioning intents that we have. The first is to train at or very close to our Vo2 max. The second is to be training at our lactic threshold. And the third is to be training at our aerobic threshold. Generally, what you will see in a week block at Arsenal is you will see 2 workouts that fit your aerobic threshold or would be considered aerobic threshold training. These are workouts we want to be completing or attacking at our base pace. Generally, they're going to be 20 minutes plus. Again, working at that 60 to 70% of your heart rate, and you're mostly going to be burning fat for fuels here. This is a workout where you feel like you should be able to go 4 hours without stopping. It's also a really great place for you to develop higher level skills at low fatigue. A lot of times training at this intensity is often missed by us because we tend to move solely into the lactate threshold or Vo2 max intensities, right? That's kind of the nature of CrossFit, functional fitness, mixed modal training, whatever you want to call it. We need to be doing an adequate amount of aerobic training each week, and it can easily be performed outside of the gym. So as I said, 2 days of the week, you're going to have an aerobic threshold type workout within the gym. It's also very easy to get another 1 to 2 aerobic threshold workouts in outside of the gym. We consider like outside of the gym aerobic workouts to be 30 to 40 minute blocks of some sort of steady state cardio, whether that be running, biking, rowing. It could be on a Peloton, it could be a skier, whatever it is. We're just looking for 30 to 40 minutes of that at our 60 to 70% or at our base pace. Now, you're also noticing that is the base of the pyramid. Well, it's the base of the pyramid because it is where we should be spending the majority of our time when we train throughout the week. Now, again, it's not where you should be spending the majority of your time when you're at the gym, but you should be getting adequate amounts of this in. So if you get at least 1 workout in at the gym, that's great. You should be aiming to get 2 to 3, again, 30 to 40 minute blocks of zone 2 cardio in outside of the gym in addition to your other workouts. And for a lot of people starting out, these zone 2 blocks might just be something as simple as going for a brisk walk that turns into a slow jog. Getting on a bike is very easy to do. Getting on a rower, a skier, just anything that's going to be steady state cardio. The next part of the pyramid is our lactate threshold training. All right, so this is going to be at our push pace. It can be anywhere from zone 3 to zone 4, about 70 to 80% of our max heart rate. And these workouts are going to be in the range of 9 to 20 minutes. We consider this lactate threshold to be your maximum sustainable pace, right? So lactate threshold training is where you can move as fast as possible without generating more lactic acid than your body can clear. All right. Working at this intensity allows for better recovery as well as improved weightlifting and gymnastics technique under fatigue, right? So a lot of times what happens is we get into these workouts. Now, when we look at like the schedule of workouts for the week, there's about 3 lactate threshold training sessions in the gym per week. And generally these always have a strength component paired with it. All right. But with that lactate threshold training, it's important to recognize that we don't want to be pushing the upper bounds of our lactate threshold zone for the entire workout for a number of reasons. One, if we're constantly pushing that 80%, we're eventually going to spike up into the 90%. From a metabolic standpoint or how our body responds to it for like what we use as fuel, there's no bad or good there. However, we will just be sacrificing our recovery tomorrow and the next day. So there is a big longevity and recovery factor that factor that comes from staying closer to that 70 to 75% for the majority of your lactate threshold training. Now, when it comes to developing some skills, right, or some technique when we're doing lactate threshold in as a conditioning intent, it's important to recognize the movements that are going to spike our heart rate. So if we know that there's something like handstand push-ups or kipping pull-ups, or there's a snatch, or there's a clean, or there's another weightlifting element that we should be holding technique as perfectly as possible on there, what we want to do is make sure that we're controlling our heart rate leading up into those elements. Generally, those higher skill gymnastic movements and those barbell movements are going to spike our heart rates more than some movements would, like even like kettlebell swings or lunges, or being on a bike, being on a rower. Like, those are easier things for us to control our heart rate through. So what we want to do is we want to keep our heart rate around that 70 to 75% during these movements. And then when we get to something like a barbell movement, right, we can let it spike our heart rate to wherever it will go to. There's not going to be much controlling it at that point. But the idea is we're not already at a point where we're close to a red line and going and picking up a barbell, moving it with less than adequate technique with a heart rate that is already now 90 or 85 to 90% plus. We had a really good example work out of this where we did 3, 6, 9, 12 on power cleans, and then 25, 20, 15, 10 on a cow bike. That was a really great lactate threshold workout because it allows you to do touch and go on the power cleans, get on the bike, allow you to stay at that 70 to 75% intensity for the 25 cows on the bike, hop off, maybe do 6 unbroken. By that point, 6 unbroken power cleans could have spiked your heart rate up into that 85, 90%, and you get back on the bike and you control your heart rate again back down to that 75% or so, right? So that by the time you get back to the barbell, you're recovered and you're able to attack that set of 9 with really good technique. And that's how we get stronger and actually improve upon our technique in the Olympic lifts and gymnastics. So again, you will see 3 lactate threshold type workouts a week. Now, at the top of the pyramid, we have our Vo2 Max type workouts, all right? Your Vo2 Max is a measure of the amount of oxygen your body can utilize during a workout. Now, the key word there is utilize, all right? Because there is a difference between the amount of oxygen you can bring in and the amount of oxygen your body can actually utilize during a workout, right? So there's like 3 mechanisms that we can kind of think about how oxygen affects workouts. Like, how much of it can we bring in? How quickly can we get it to the muscles or the area that it needs to go? And then how much of it can we actually utilize when we get there? When we're working on our Vo2 Max, we're working on that utilization component of our oxygen consumption. All right. So these workouts are going to be days where we're pushing the upper limits of our fitness. These workouts are going to be relatively short or performed in intervals, right? This is like, this is September, or this is August at the time of our recording. We're halfway through our interval training cycle at the moment. So you can start to understand what these Vo2 Max workouts really feel like. They're not fun, right? If you're actually pushing yourself as hard as you can. Movement complexity during these workouts should be limited, right? Because we want to prioritize moving as fast as possible. When we have a workout that has the intent of increasing our Vo2 Max or like pushing into that all-out pace, this is not the appropriate time for us to be working on skill or technique on complex movements, right? We want to be generating volume under extreme fatigue. So a lot of times, and this will translate to you being better at those movements, right? We want you going with something that's going to be a little bit more low skill. So using the example of Bizarro Jackie that we did last week, where it was that 800-meter run, the 50 thrusters at an empty barbell, and then 30 handstand push-ups for the majority of us. But if we were going truly all out and approaching this as a Vo2 Max intent, the majority of us, by the time we get to the handstand push-ups, are really going to struggle to hold that all-out pace that we had been pushing earlier. And that's okay, right? what we want you to do is, rather than thinking about, oh man, I have to do this high skill movement because if I don't do it here, I'm never going to get better at it. What we want you to do is develop muscular endurance in the area that we'd be generally working. So like those handstand push-ups, we can still develop strength and endurance just by doing push-ups, right? Or just by doing some sort of seated dumbbell press that will eventually translate into making us better at handstand push-ups, because it'll increase the amount of work we can do in a short amount of time, right, in our upper body, so that when you get to a point where you're not as fatigued, right, maybe we're in an aerobic threshold workout or a lactate threshold workout, and these handstand push-up movements come up or something like that comes up, your body will have the capacity to actually move more, and you'll be able to work technique there, right? So there's two parts of the equation. There's the technique part, and then there's the strength. Do you actually have the endurance to actually continue doing those movements with proper pacing there? During the week, there's generally going to be 2 of these Vo2 Max workouts. And then again, these ones are going to be paired with strength. Now, how many of these workouts should you be doing each week? Well, again, it really depends on your level of fitness, your experience, and what your goals are. We all need to be spending time in each of these zones, right? A lot of the time that we do spend training should be in that aerobic threshold zone, because that is going to increase the amount of oxygen we can bring in while working out, right? That is the goal. How much oxygen can we bring in while we work out? And the longer we go, the more oxygen we can bring in. Then we go into that auto oxygen utilization, right? How much of that oxygen can we that we bring in can we actually use? So you can see how these things all complement one another. Generally, what we want to see is, if you're just working out in the gym and not doing anything else, 1 Vo2 Max workout a week, 2 of your lactate threshold workouts a week, and then 1 aerobic threshold workout a week. That would be 4 days in the gym. Let's say you're doing 5 days in the gym. Ideally, you'll do 2 aerobic threshold workouts, 2 lactate threshold workouts, and 1 Vo2 Max workout. That would just be for someone who is has been with us for a couple of years, is generally fit, has no specific performance goals, whether that's in the sport of fitness or in an arena outside of fitness. When it comes to talking about performance, there's a million different ways that we can go with actually structuring training around these. And in another video, I will talk about more appropriate prescriptions depending on your goal. So I hope that this clarifies the intent of the workouts that we are trying to achieve throughout the week. It should also give you an idea of, okay, whenever I see that ideal intensity of base pace 60%, 70%, this is an aerobic threshold workout. What is the point here? What am I trying to achieve? And the same thing for your lactate threshold training and your Vo2 Max training.